Good afternoon and welcome to my talk on early game retention. Now, talking about early game retention, we all know the hard fact. The hard fact, wrong button, not this, should be the other way. Oh. All right, okay. The hard fact is that most of the people, most of the players that discover a game for the first time, they just never come back. They play one session, 2 sessions maybe, and they just never come back. And for the industry, that's a big problem. It's a big issue because the competition is very hard, as you all know it, but also because getting new players, acquiring new players costs a lot of money. So, game designers, are facing this issue, but are not necessarily aware of its importance. It is true that the main responsibilities for the game designers, obviously, is to create, a compelling game experience, to plan the level design, to think about the monetization strategy, and so on, and of course to build long-term retention. But sometimes designers overlook the importance of short-term retention, which is called onboarding. And that's, one of the points which I want to stress out today is that for a game designer, it is as important to think about short-term retention than to plan, the whole game mechanics. And what I'm going to do today in my 20 minutes, I'm just going to share with you what I believe are the best practices to keep your players engaged after the first game sessions. I'll briefly introduce myself. I'm a game designer. I'm freelance. I've been doing that for 24 years. So that means that when I started to work, I was essentially working on console. So kind of, action games, console, AAA titles, and so on. You have a few examples here. That was, like about 20 years ago, and then for the past 12 years, I worked essentially on mobile titles because this is what the market was looking for. So here are some of the titles I've been working on. Now I'm kind of back on console because the market is changing. But basically, it gives you an idea, what I've been going through. So let's get now into the thick of the topic. So first of all, before I will describe those key learnings, we need to think about the player. It's always important to put the player at the center of everything you do when you plan a game design. So we need to go into the heads of players. What do they think when they're about to start a game for the first time? Well, wrong slide again. Seems to have some trouble with this thing. All right. Well, first of all, players are looking for a certain experience. Think about it. What will attract you to a new game? Well, maybe it's the title, the theme, maybe it's just a screenshot, whatever, No matter what, if you decide to play one specific game, or at least to try it, it's because something in that game attracted you. Maybe you are a big fan of medieval Japan, so any game which talks about medieval Japan, you'll try it because this is something that is interest of you, okay? So that means that when somebody decide to try your game, it's because you made a promise to this player. Look, you're interested in that topic, this is what I'm going to deliver in my game. Another thing also that people know, they have choices. We know that. Especially now for mobile games and freemium games, there are just so many games out there and so many good games. So players know that, well, if I don't like this game, who cares? I can play another one, They also might feel some anxiety. This is interesting to take into consideration. Think about it. When you discover a game for the first time, some players will feel anxiety because they might say, okay, well, will I like the game? Will it be too difficult for me? Will I get bored? And so on, So somehow, you have this anxiety level, which can be very high when we talk to casual players. Hardcore gamers, they are used to games, so they know they will learn, they know they are used to difficulty and so on. But casual gamers, they might be a bit scared by a game they don't know. So this is very important to keep in mind in the player's psychology. Some players will feel some anxiety when they start a new game. Okay. And last point, which is probably the most important one, and it's a bit difficult to understand. When you pay for a game, right? Even if you decide to spend $1, €1, $1, okay? It's a small amount. Nevertheless, it means you made a choice. You decided this game, I believe it's worth enough for me to spend money, okay? That means that if after you bought the game, you play the game and the game is disappointing, well, you'll continue playing a bit because nobody wants to admit he made a wrong choice, all right? But when the game was free, there is no this monetary involvement, which means that player, will leave right away. This is something which is a real problem. Free-to-play games, offering something which is free is great. It's getting people, to try your game because there's no barrier to entry. But the problem is that you can get people easily in the game, but you will lose them as easily. So this is why, it's very important to understand that offering your game for free will decrease drastically the level of engagement of the player. So this is what, this is the mind of the player before he's going to start a new game. Now let's try to see the best practices to keep them in the game. Gee, I'm very unlucky with this thing. Okay, best practice number 1, get the player into the game as fast as possible. And I'm going to show you an example. I'll take this example. It's called Criminal Case. It's a hidden object game developed and published by Pretty Simple, a French studio. The game initially was published on Facebook, then went to mobile. Very, very successful game. And I'm going to show you how the game starts. So first image, first screen, this is a splash screen. So those pictures are taken from the Facebook version. Splash screen. So you already know what you're going to be dealing with. It's a game about criminal investigation. Okay? First slide. No explanation. I apologize. The slides are in French because I couldn't get access to the English version, but it's kind of simple to understand. The very first slide you see in the game, that's it. You got this guy coming up. He's somebody of your assistant. You say, hey, a crime has taken place. Let's go and investigate. And of course, you see some pictures, from the crime scene. This blonde girl with a miniskirt and her throat has been cut. So obviously, this is just designed, to make it a bit more spicy. You notice that at this level, the player doesn't know the game, doesn't know the kind of gameplay, knows nothing about the game. All he knows is that he's taken into an exciting criminal investigation. Third pictures. We discover, the actual game image. It's a hidden object game, so it's very simple. You've got names, and you have to find the object on the pictures. You've got some explanations, okay, how it works. Another explanation is that there's a help mechanism. They don't even explain you how it works. They just tell you, look, it's there, okay? And fifth screen, that's it, you're in the game. So within 15 seconds, that's it, you're actually, playing the game, and you're actually doing, the first step in a criminal investigation. So you see, they did not waste the player by showing things which are not interesting. They took the player straight into the actual gameplay. So, okay. So why is it the best practice? Well, basically because it delivers the promise you've made to the player in the first place. The promise here, you like crime investigation, this is the game about it. And you deliver this promise very, very quickly. And also, which is very important, you start the gameplay very quickly. Let's not forget, why do people play games? Not because of story. They play games because of the gameplay. So you have to deliver it as quickly as possible. And remember, real gameplay is made up of challenge. And this is what is really making, a game standing out. It's its actual gameplay. Okay, best practice number 2. Add simple storytelling. I'm very unlucky with this thing. I think I'm not the only one. All right. Okay. Again, I'll take an example from Boom Beach from Supercell. Now, this example might be surprising because Boom Beach is the 3rd game published by Supercell. Supercell, like great experts in mobile games, obviously free-to-play mobile games. And what is interesting is that this game, it's a bit more hardcore-ish than Clash of Clans. It looked like Clash of Clans, but actually, the gameplay is a bit more technical, and it's more for hardcore gamers. Why do they have some storytelling? So first of all, let's see how it looks like. When you start the game, immediately that's what you discover. This guy tells you, hey, look, our island is going to be attacked. We need to defend it, all right? and you discover, the enemy, the evil Lieutenant Hammerman. So you defend the village, I skip some slides, to be a bit faster. After that, you learn that, okay, now we fought back, now we need to attack, whoever has attacked us. So we built like a landing craft. We select the island, which is our target. This is where the bad guys are coming from. We attack the island, and then, then we've got this nice character and say, hey, thank you for serving us. Okay, this is pure storytelling. Now, for those of you who know the game, you know what the game is all about. It's about combat, it's about strategy, it's really into multiplayer challenge. And why the hell did they put, this kind of storytelling? Well, actually, there's a reason for that. Is that storytelling, it's an easy way, to get people's attention, especially if the game system is a bit complex. That's a big benefit of doing that. This is a fact. All of us, we are attracted by story. Okay, all of us. So of course, after a while, we might be interested by other things, but a simple story, it's a good way to catch people's attention, at least for a few minutes. Another good thing also about storytelling is that if your gameplay is a bit complex to explain, okay, by having some simple storytelling, you kind of cover it up. In other words, you make it less boring, And finally, also, it gives purpose to the player's action. You save the nice lady, blonde again. So it looks like it's trivial, but when the game starts, well, those are little gimmicks, that help people stay in the game for, a few extra minutes. Okay. Third best practice, offer real gameplay and challenge. Now here I have underlined real gameplay, okay? I should have done it for challenge as well. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. This time I'll take another example. This is a bit more hardcore-ish game. It's called Real Racing 3. It's a racing game on mobile, published by Electronic Arts. And let's see how the game starts. Well, first of all, the game starts with a video. You see some high-power, expensive, fancy car, just rushing on a racetrack. You can already tell, those are the high-detail models and so on. After a few seconds, you go into one of those cars' cockpits. Okay. So actually, this is a moving image. Okay. So the car is just moving forward. The game explained to you the controls. They are very simple. Basically, it's a game where you can control the speed. You steer left and right. There's another tutorial screen that tells you how to change the camera. All right. And right after that, the race starts. This is called a rolling start. In other words, all the cars start at the same time. And then when the light goes green, everybody just starts to speed up and so on. So within a few seconds, that's it. You're in a real race. And what is making it more exciting is that you're actually racing against other players. You see, their flag and the name. Wow. Multiplayer racing against other players, it's always more exciting. Now you complete the race, okay? Now what you don't know here is that you're actually racing against ghosts of other players, all right? So those are real players, but they played in the past. And obviously, they selected players which are not especially good. So chances are that you are going to win this race. It's not very difficult. Nevertheless, during your first game, you had the thrill of beating other players. At least this is what you think. And this is super exciting because this is what is making multiplayer so powerful as a gaming mechanics, It's a thrill of victory and the bitterness of defeat. We all know that. And this is what they bring. So even if it's simple, there is some challenge because you can fail. If you just don't do stupid things on the track, you're going to lose. But if you drive properly, you're going to win and you beat real players. At least that's what you think. So that's the best practice because obviously, and this thing, okay, well, challenge, create excitement, Obviously, it is tempting to start a game with no challenge, to make it easy, to make sure that people will not fail. The problem is that if there's no challenge, there's no fun. So depending on who your audience is, but if you are targeting an audience made up of gamers, put some challenge in. Make your game stand out. Best practice number 4. Okay, I'll show you an example from Smash Hit, a game designer by Swedish studio Mediocre. This is the worst studio name I've ever found, okay? So this game, just look at the splash screen. Just by looking at it, you say, wow, this is the game I've never seen. everything is unique in this game. I mean, the color, the graphics, you know, just by looking at it, you see, oh, this game is something I've never seen, I want to try it out. And as soon as you start the game, you get confirmation. The game really looks different from what you've seen. Video. Okay. Will it go? Yes, no. Magic help? Yes. There's some sound again. Everything soon is different. The sound is different, the graphics, the gameplay, you know. So this game has many things that stand out. True. But you know, they had the idea of making it stand out right away, you know. And so on. You can, okay. I'll just okay. All right. So why is it the best practice? Well, very simple, because we know that players are attracted by new experiences. It can be anything. It can be a gameplay, a graphic style, a soundtrack. It can be, you know, a storytelling, anything. But this is something which really I insist, you know, especially for you guys, if you are in the game design, you know, try to be creative regarding the game system. Try to make it different, you know. I know it's difficult, but, you know, making a copycat of existing game, you know, sometimes, you know, it's a recipe for failure. Now, those guys, they understood it. They made it in such a way that clearly, you know, from the very start, the game looks completely different from everything else that has been seen before. So what's the best? Okay. Oh. Okay. Best practice number 5, show players the scope of the game. In other words, show players how big your game is. Again, I'll take the example of Boom Beach, you know. In this game, it's a construction and fighting game, so you have buildings you can add to your base, you know, towers, guns, machine guns, and so on. So obviously, you know that you cannot unlock everything at the beginning, okay? But at least you can see everything. And this is a way of telling the player, look, if you play with me, you know, eventually you'll be able to unlock all those exciting features. That's what I mean by showing the scope of the game. This is a mobile games. It's pretty simple, obviously, because you've got maybe like 12 different kind of buildings you can have, okay? But another example is World of Tank, which is much bigger, you know, in that game. Okay? The game starts by offering you, you know, there are different nations in this game, French, German, English, and so on. So for each nation, they offer you a free tank, which is usually just little thing ridiculous, okay? But then you discover the progression tree, and this is what you see. Okay? I mean, you see there are hundreds of tanks to unlock. And especially you've got exciting tanks, the German Tiger, and the American Sherman, and so on, you know. So you see that if you play in the game, you'll be able, you know, to unlock all those exciting tanks. So this is another way to tell you, look, if you decide to engage in my game, you're going to be with us, you know, for years and years and years. So again, okay, it's the best practice. Well, basically, because it tells player if you decide to play the game, you know, there's a lot for you. Okay, the game is going to be very, very generous. Best practice number 6: give players good reason to return. Now here we talk about open loops, so something that some of you already know. An open loop, basically, it's a very simple mechanism. An open loop is made up of a game objective and the reward. For instance, if you build 3 cornfields, then you'll be able, you know, to unlock, I don't know, like the windmill, okay? So you see you've got an objective, built 3 fields, and the reward, built the windmill, okay? As soon as you have completed this open loop, then usually you've got another loop coming in. Okay, now you've got your windmill. Now if you build 2 windmills, then you can build a bakery, okay? So, and so on. And we know that in many, many games, open loops, you know, they pile after each other. They get longer and longer, and we've got more and more of them to do, okay? And it can go on like that forever. This is like a typical mechanism that we see in many, many games, especially, you know, mobile freemium games. Open loops are great. They are used obviously for early retention, but also, you know, they work very well for long-term retention. So why are they so effective? Well, essentially because they rest on human psychology. When we start a task, we like to complete it. You know, it's somewhere in the back of our mind. And obviously, when maybe you've noticed it, but when you get one of those open loops, usually it's halfly done. In other words, you have already partially completed it. And then also, their completion does not rest on skill. The completion rests on persistence. In other words, whether you are a good player or a not so good player, then you have your chances of completing the game loop. Of course, if you are a skilled player, it will go faster, yes. But in any case, you know that you can succeed in doing it. This is very important. This is very different from traditional games, where usually, in order to finish your level, you need to beat the boss or whatever, so it rests on skill. This is different. And finally, last thing, which is very important, completing an open loop unlock useful rewards. Okay, like in that case, the case I mentioned, you're going to unlock like the bakery, which is something important, to grow the city and so on. So they don't reward you by giving you gold or whatever, this is nearly useless. They reward you by unlocking for you new features that will make the game better and so on. So, So these are the best practices, I recommend when you have to work on onboarding. However, there's one last one which I did not mention because I think most of you know it. It's just simple, to be creative in your game. Thank you very much. And I'm so unlucky with this thing. Okay, that's it. You got my details. Okay. Maybe we have time for a question. Maybe.
Yeah, just some quick ones. Yeah. Thank you very much, Pascal. I think this is an area we don't spend enough time focusing on. So please, if you have questions, ask away. There's a question right here.
Well, one.
Hi. About mobile games. When is the good time to introduce ads or whatever you use to monetize the game?
That's a very good question. The question is, okay, in the free-to-play games, when can we start, to push ads? Okay. Well, actually, obviously not from the very start. Let the player discover the game. However, it should not happen too late. The reason is that you're going to lose many players. I mean, even well-designed games will lose many players early on. So you still want, to get some cash out of the first players. So I would say that the question is not when to start pushing the ads. The real question is that how often do you want them to submit them to the ad? Let's assume that you have an ad every time that the player fails. You have a game like a tempo run. It's a runner. So that means that players will fail pretty often. So you can decide, okay, we'll have an ad after every failure. Okay. The problem is that if it repeats too often, this is bad. So what I would recommend in that situation is that first you show an ad after the first failure, then you show another ad after the third failure, the fifth one, and so on. So over the time, people will still see ads, but they are not going to be completely crushed by them.
Thank you very much. And on that note, I'm afraid we have to move on. But thank you so much for that, Pascal.
Thank you. And
really insightful stuff.
Thank you for the person who's doing the translation. I know this is difficult.
Thank you very much. Awesome.